I guess it's time. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Out on the Ranch with Dr. Lee. It is another chilly South Texas morning. It's about 38 degrees outside today. Despite the fact that it was 80 degrees here yesterday, it just kind of goes along with that old saying, if you don't like Texas weather, give it 24 hours and everything will change. Well, yes, indeed, it is time for a little repair on the bed of old Luther. Luther, again, 65-year-old Chevrolet pickup truck, and the bedwood is definitely showing its age. A lot of rot there, and I have to come clean. I'm not that good of a shot. I really was not throwing those water bottles through the holes in the bed of the truck.
No, it actually fell through a hole.
Okay. Yep, pretty funny there. Anyway, it's time for a change for old Luther. He deserves a new bed, and I've been putting this off for quite a while just because I could not figure out exactly how I wanted to do it. They make all these kits to do it. They sell them online. All the boards are beautiful and pre-cut, but putting a beautiful new bed in Luther, who is a working ranch truck, it's one of those things that just didn't fit. It's kind of like a mustache on the Mona Lisa. It's one of those things you just don't do. So I was in a quandary. I thought, well, I could go get some old wood and distress it. And then one of you guys brought up a great idea, and they said, how about some barn wood? Well, that's something I did not think about, and I think that is a perfect idea. So whoever brought that up, I don't remember who it was, but thank you very much. We are going to go forward with that. Back on the west side of the ranch, we have an old sheep and goat pen, and there's an old barn in that pen, an old sheep barn that was put up there probably back in the 40s. When we got here in the 80s, the darn thing was already looking pretty bad and getting ready to fall down. And over the last 30 years, it's about halfway down. However, it's got a lot of good barn wood in it. So here's that old barn right now, and you can see that there's plenty of barn wood to take care of Luther's bed. So I thought that would just be a perfect situation, and it would kind of match old Luther's personality too. So anyway, that's our plan. We're going to get going on that. The biggest problem I had with this is trying to figure out which tool to use to take this bed apart. And my number one go-to tool for tearing stuff up is usually the Milwaukee Sawzall. It's an electric reciprocating saw that I have taken 2 or 3 cars apart, sawed the fenders off of them, cut the frames, done all kinds of things, welded it all back together, and that Sawzall is just a wonderful tool. However, on this truck, it just didn't work that well. The old bedwood in most cases is made out of pine. However, in Luther, it's got oak in there, and the part that's not rotten is hard as it can be. So even the Sawzall had a hard time taking that out. So I thought, well, heck with the wood, I'll just cut the bolts. So I went first with a little handheld air-powered cutoff saw, and that worked pretty good, but it was pretty darn slow. I couldn't get to most of the bolts with bolt cutters, plus it required a fairly gargantuan amount of force to cut those bolts. So that was not my tool of choice either. So I finally remembered that I also had a pneumatic chisel, and lo and behold, that was the ticket to get this thing apart. So with the combination of these tools, I was able to get all of the wood taken out of the bed. And thanks to the Christmas present that Addie gave me a couple of years ago, I was also able to get as much wood as I needed off the old goat shed and bring it back to the shop. So it just came down to a matter of cutting these things to size, and some of the boards were broken and split, and I had to glue a lot of those.
Are you here to help? Are you here to help? Go grab a saw, okay? Go grab a saw. Get busy.
I do have a question for you folks though. Which side of the wood should I have facing up? Should I have the red side with the barn paint on it, which gives it the old barn look? Or should I have the back side of it, which has no paint on it, which just kind of gives it a neutral look, which honestly would be a little bit more realistic as far as the way this truck would have looked back in his heyday. So that is something I would like to leave for you guys to give me a little help on. Which looks better, the natural side up or the red side up? If you would, please leave comments down in the comment section and I'll check them out and we'll take a vote and see which way we want to do it. Anyway, that's old Luther. Got him coming around. I'll come back probably on the next video, maybe the video after that, and show you the finished product. Between working on the ranch and taking care of Luther and a few other things have been going on this week, it's been pretty busy. I've got 2 cases for Vet Ranch that are almost done, and both the little dogs should be going home this week. One of them is particularly interesting, and it's a little dog. I got a call late on Christmas Eve night. There was a lady that was down at one of the shelters in South Texas late at night on Christmas Eve, and a little dog had just gotten smashed by a car. So she texted me, and I was just about getting ready to go to bed. And she sent me this video right here and said, Lee, they're going to put this little dog to sleep unless you can save her. And I'm like, Christmas Eve, wouldn't you know it? So I took a look at the video, and man, it just broke my heart to see this little dog dragging her rear end around. So I said, well, Pat, tell them to hold off on killing that little dog, and you get her to San Antonio, and I'll see what I can do. So anyway, it wound up being a Christmas miracle. And I had the little dog out here to the ranch this week, shooting her last video, letting her run around, and it was just a heartwarming case. I think you're really going to like it. So anyway, we did that. The other little dog, he had been hurt a long time ago, and his body healed, but it didn't heal right. Look at this little guy. So anyway, we went ahead and took care of him too, and I got him out here to the ranch too this past week and let him run around. So those 2 little guys are doing good. They will be able to leave this week, so we're going to miss them dearly, but looking forward to them starting their new life. Anyway, guys, I'll give you a heads up when these 2 cases are coming up on Vet Ranch so that you can go see the whole story. And also out here on the ranch, guys, I am still looking for our little 3-legged deer. I have moved some of the game cameras. You can even see in this video right here, this game camera's on taking a picture of this deer, and you can see another game camera on down the line taking the picture of another deer. So I've got these things set up on most of the trails where the deer frequent. However, I've yet to see any sign of our little 3-legged buddy. Interestingly enough, though, in looking for our 3-legged friend, I have seen our tailless raccoon friend, the one that kind of stumped us all there for a while. I guess I ought to name him Wombat, because that's what most of us thought the little dude was. So I don't know, that's a good name for him. Anyway, the without even looking for him, looking for other animals, I'm beginning to see him over and over and over. What I am seeing more of, even since the last video I put up, is coyotes. We're seeing them coming through in bunches now, where we were just seeing individual single coyotes most of the time. Sometimes they'd come through 3 or 4 at a time, but now we're seeing a lot of them, and they are just lighting up the game cameras. Just, you know, coyotes. Interestingly enough, one in particular has the mange, and you'll see some of these coyotes are just beautiful. They've got great coats of hair, and they're real healthy dogs. And then you'll see this guy right here. Look at that tail. It looks just like a little stick hanging down. He doesn't have hardly any hair, and if you look at his body, he doesn't have the coat that hangs down underneath. He doesn't have the ruff around his neck and all. He is pretty chilly these days, as cool as it is this time of year here in South Texas. And those dogs are just like us. They're not used to the cold either. So that poor guy running around with the mange and no coat, I'm sure he's pretty miserable. But nevertheless, the coyotes population is going up. However, we are still seeing the population of the small animals holding its own. The foxes, the number of foxes is insane. I'm just seeing I am seeing basically countless numbers of foxes. And out here on the ranch, we used to see, I'd go pull these game cameras up after they've been setting out for 2 weeks or so, and we'd see maybe 4 or 5 videos of foxes. And now, one particular camera down by the creek where the foxes really like to hang out, it's common for me to have 100 videos of foxes in 2 or 3 days on that particular camera. And the other ones are picking them up too. So we are really getting overrun with the foxes and the coyotes at this point in time. And again, like I said, the small animal numbers are still up. The jackrabbits are out there in force, the skunks, the raccoons, man, they're all there. And here's an interesting picture right here of a fox and a raccoon together. Go figure. Maybe that's why the population numbers of the small animals aren't going down. Maybe they found a way to get along. But anyway, the deer are mostly back. The bucks are mostly back from being in hiding through deer season. We're seeing a lot of big, beautiful bucks. They're back. The axis deer are in great numbers too. Some of the axis really enjoy taking selfies. And a lot of you ask me about the axis deer, and again, they're escaped exotics. They were brought in from India decades ago, and they started escaping, and this habitat down here in South Texas just seems to really suit them. They're a much bigger deer than the white-tailed deer that are native here, and just like the white-tailed deer, they have antlers, but they don't have shed cycles that are similar to the white-tailed deer. Here's a really interesting looking little axis buck. He's got his antlers in velvet. They're still growing right now. And later on, you'll see them start to scratch their antlers against small trees and fence posts and things like that. And they'll be knocking that velvet off of there. And that's right before their antlers turn to almost a bone consistency. But anyway, guys, all the wildlife are doing good. The deer and all the small animals are good. The fish are safe. We had these 3 fishermen stop by the other day, and they tried to catch the fish, but the fish are hiding out pretty much. We did see one little bass cruising around, but he had absolutely no interest in worms. So go figure. Of course, there were a few other rocks and other things splashing in the water at the same time, so fishing conditions were not at their greatest. And also, folks, you always ask me about Uncle Floyd. His doctor appointment was today. We went in there, and he got all of his blood work done, and everything looks great on him. His doctor's really happy with him. To kind of get you up to speed with him, he has and has had for quite some time what's called bone marrow dysplasia, and that's where his bone marrow just does not work very good. It makes red blood cells and white blood cells, but it does not make very healthy cells, and it does not make quite enough of them. Very similar to leukemia, but leukemia is cancer, and this is not a cancerous disease that Floyd has. He just has really, really old bone marrow. When you start to think that you have to realize his bone marrow was making blood cells back before World War I. It's been doing this for a long time. It's just kind of worn out. It makes some cells that don't work very well. And he goes in and gets chemotherapy once a month. He goes in for daily injections for 5 days, and then he's done for 5 to 6 weeks in most cases. So this has been going on for about 3 years or so, and they just check his blood all the time. And so far, so good. His counts are low, but his body has had time to acclimate to it. So he gets around pretty good, especially for a guy that's 103 and a half years old. He's doing well. So I want to thank you very kindly for all your concern for him, all your questions about him, and most certainly for all the prayers. You guys also ask me about Bud all the time, my other geriatric, and he's doing quite well too. He's feeling spiffy enough that he got caught in a hog trap this week. There was some corn in there, and he decided he would go in there and check that corn out. What are you doing in there? What are you doing in there? Did you get in trouble? Are you supposed to be in there? Huh? As a younger dog, he used to go in the hog trap, get caught in there, and after he'd eaten all the corn, then he figured a way out. But he is not so agile, he is not so strong, and he's kind of losing it up there too these days. But anyway, I thought you'd enjoy seeing old Bud. Well, folks, please remember to leave a comment about Luther's bedwood. Should I have it with the painted side up or have it with the natural side up? If you don't mind, just leave me a little note. That way I'll know which way to go. Anyway, thanks again for stopping by, folks. Always remember I love you, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye now. So what you doing there, Al?
Neutering a dog, Dad.
All right. Who's going to learn you?
That's a mistake.